everybody. Tonight we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultra spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Today is Thursday, August 24th, 2023, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator in Ontario, and I apply my skills to the UFO, paranormal, and consciousness phenomenon as the Director of Investigations for the Experiencers Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us. I was going to say this morning. We're not doing evening anymore. For those who already are, for those who are already YouTube channel members or thinking of becoming one, remember that you get priority over the questions. You also get behind the scenes, extended footage, bloopers, and access to members only programs. All you have to do is click the big blue button that says join, and while you're there, hit that bell so you can be notified when all members of TESSA release their latest content. Okay, let's get the party started. Our guest for season 5, episode 9 is Sheldon Norberg. Sheldon Norberg's lifetime of seeking led him to years of study at the Academy of Intuition Medicine, his degree in psychospiritual healing from San Francisco State University, and a study of Chinese Medicine and Taoist science with Dr. Angela Wu. He has specialized in paranormal remediation of homes and buildings for over 25 years. You can find Sheldon and his work at www.healinghouses.com. So that's plural with houses, and it's also in the description below. All right, Sheldon, put on your tinfoil hat. We are about to go down a rabbit hole. How you doing?
I'm good, but I really need to make myself a tinfoil hat just to protect my scalp and from all of the 5G radiation and what have you.
Do you think these caps actually work for that? Or is that a market?
I'm not so big on aluminum foil. I don't think lead foil I really want on my skin either. So I'm not too sure. I think a Faraday cage could definitely get the job done.
Yeah. On that note, I was thinking maybe we should check the stocks on aluminum foil. Maybe it's part of their marketing plan, right?
You could get a bump every time you come on. You might, want to just track that with your show.
Yeah, we could. Yeah. Like that. All right. Well, that was kind of an icebreaker question already, but we're gonna do our official icebreaker question, Chris, if you wouldn't mind. Right on. I forgot how loud that was. Sorry about that.
That was tough on the earphones.
I forgot about that.
Is this a Wim Hof question?
Today's icebreaker question for both of us is brought to us by our Experiencers Anonymous group, and that question is: what celebrity do most people think you look like?
Wow. Somebody the other day was telling me they thought I looked like Sean Penn, which I was kind of like, what are you talking about? I've been told I look like Kevin Kline. But I don't know. It depends on what I'm looking like. You could see you can see from my photos on my website where I was, shaving my head for a long time. I'm, clean cut me is not the crazy professor me. So
yeah, I hear you on that. I've gotten Kevin Bacon vibes from people.
I got you on my monitor here. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I do attempt to shave the little growth of hair that I can make, I've gotten it's been called the Johnny Depp look,
Ooh.
but I never really had any of that. So those are the only two.
There might be a touch of Cosner in you.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take Cosner. I like that. Okay. That. No? You don't think I look like?
Yeah.
You don't think I can handle Waterworld, Chris? He's shaking his head in the background.
Yeah, those tech people. What do they know?
Yeah, what do they know? Or maybe Tin Cup. Can I do Tin Cup? Field of Dreams. Give me something, Chris. No. All right.
Yeah, you got the baseball hat on.
Yeah, that's true. It's a TinFoil hat.
That's a nice.
This hat actually you can get from Rex Bear on his website, the Leak Project. Sorry, no the. And it's actually it says out of time, so this is actually like a Marty McFly kind of type tinfoil hat as well.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, so your bio is short, which is okay, but it doesn't give me a lot to pull on. So let's elaborate a little bit. And my first question is, why are you the way that you are? And I want you to walk me back as far as you can. And I'm going to take notes, and I want you to tell me and everybody else how you got to this bio that I read today.
That was funny. I was having dinner with my dad and a couple of his friends the other day, and they're like, "Well, how did you get to be, Sheldon?" And I was really offset when my parents moved here from. Well, I think they moved back here to California, and I just I was sort of always a kind of standout kid, a little bit different, and I really took to some experiences of connectivity with the world in isolation. I used to have an early morning paper route, and I would be out at 4 a.m. all the time, cruising around, just having the whole world to myself, and in the dark and in the weather, and time to think and time to kind of wonder what was going on. And, when I was a kid, I was heavy into Star Trek and reading a ton of stuff and reading about Eric von Däniken and aliens, and watching In Search Of, and wondering about really interested in paranormal phenomena, and kind of trying to plug that into my life. And there wasn't really a lot of opportunity to investigate that, actually, by the time I went to college, and I discovered, I think, that there had been programs in paranormal studies at Duke University and here at Sonoma State University, but those had all been long shut down, or for a few years anyway. So I sort of ventured into media, actually, and I think I got to say that I had some transpersonal experiences when I was young, where I felt as if I had left my body in certain experiences and departed from this, standard form of consciousness. I would admit to having used medicinal substances to change my standard of consciousness, and that left me with some real serious questions. But I also had, when I think back about it, I had a history of really intense dreams that really, one in particular I can think about. I dreamt that I was sleeping and that I came to myself and was trying to wake myself up. And I was yelling at myself, and I grabbed myself by the collar, and I was slapping myself in the face, "Wake up, man, wake up, wake up." And I woke up, and it was like, whoa, what the hell is that? And so I got up. It was 3 a.m, 3:30, something like that. And got out of bed, went to go down the hall to go to the bathroom, and my house was on fire, and pretty bad. And I kicked in the door. It was in college. I kicked in my friend's door and screamed at them and ran downstairs to get a fire extinguisher. And by the time I got back to trying to get back to my room, the whole house was engulfed in flames and burned down. And so this sense of being conscious at some alternative level and being able to communicate with myself about things that were, outside of my available state, waking state, was really cemented in me, even in normal consciousness or sleep and dreams. So I have always had the sense that I should be cultivating that, and over a period of years and experiences, and that I turned more into a meditative path when I decided I really needed to try to put my finger on what the hell was going on. I was directed by a advisor to go to the Academy of Intuition Medicine, which is an early psychic school based on the tenet that we are all aware in various energetic sensitivities, and have the ability to learn to meditate, stabilize ourselves, clear out the dross, and focus our internal awareness through whatever channels that we perceive things in best. And whether that's you hear voices, you have visions, you feel things around you, you have dream experiences, there's a lot of different channels that people gain access and information from, and learning to kind of clarify that and separate that, spending years of daily meditation practice and looking at how that can help you address your injuries and life events, and general being became a sort of way of life for me.
So I had a question there in terms of that as well. Have you? Yeah, I understand that thought process too, because the ability to sense what you sense, I believe that research has existed since the day we've been born, and there is obviously indoctrination and things like that to suppress these ideas and these things, and I kind of feel like that kind of happens around the time we start going to school. Prior to school, we're free thinking and all these other stuff, and Intune and all these other things. So this Academy of Intuition Medicine. Pardon me.
I get that.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on how that is outside of a normal school system, I guess?
Oh yeah, well, it's a private, very small private study center. Actually, they, after many years, the director got accreditation to give continuing education units. She got her PhD and wrote a book about her sort of history and techniques in energy medicine, is what she calls it, because for a lot of people, and you see the deluge of psychic healers everywhere, in using whatever the information assessing channels you may have to look at another person. Primarily the first job and first years you spend are about looking at yourself as much as you can, but you really do that best by reflecting on others and having, kind of this interchange. So the classroom experience a lot is about self-awareness, and then developing your tools for looking at other people, understanding the way that you get information from other people so that you can understand the way that you've been doing it all your life. You're like, oh, I'm always hearing these voices when I'm walking down the street, because my psychic sense is wide open. Well, you're listening to people that are walking by, or you're always feeling when you're around your family, things that you don't really feel like, because you're so deeply connected to the people around you that you are on this open sensory level of feeling their emotional stuff. And that's kind of a primary driver of a lot of the people, a lot of the women particularly who come to class are just programmed or fall into this pattern of feeling for other people, feeling for people who don't want to feel, be conscious of their own feelings. And they carry around a lot of that, which can be unhelpful. So the intention in class is to learn to separate what you're carrying, what you're sensing of other people's feelings from your own. Clarify your own, deal with your own issues of things you've experienced that you can, then you're traveling back into looking at your past history, much like, self-hypnosis or hypnotherapy or any kind of deep therapy. As we said, it's like doing the psychic training. It's like 10 years of therapy in 1 year, because you're continually addressing the layers of your internal energy body and your physical body and your nervous system and your history, and unearthing these chunks of, wow, I didn't realize I was holding on to this rock when, of this, bad emotional experience when I was 20 that I've been carrying with me for 15 years and armored over, but needs to be lifted out, massaged out, vibrated out. And, often it's much easier for another external viewer to see that, to feel that, to hear that, to sense that, and to tell you that, so that you can, be aware of these things. And as you kind of go through this exchange of sensing yourself, reflecting on others, discussing with others, and developing your apparatus for channeling energy, assuming that we are all transceiver type of entities. We are, and it's very much proven now that we are electrically charged. We're electric beings. We put off an electrical field. Our organs are vibrating at different wavelengths, and we have entrainment and alignment with others on these different wavelengths. That you are moving consciously, directing energy at other people, trying to help them heal these different tears and chunks and damage to their system, and fluff them up, shall we say. So that's kind of the practice. And as you go further and further, you're just strengthening your skills, looking at sort of different conceptual frameworks for where the information is, where the by the extent of body systems. And as I was moving through that program, and then finishing my degree and studying Chinese medicine at the same time, as I wrote I dropped out of college in the 80s and had come back to school 10 years later and written my own program in psycho-spiritual healing. So I was looking, combining a philosophy, psychology, and religions, basically Native American. I took a lot of Native American classes at San Francisco State, and studied with Jacob Needleman, who's a really great, well-known philosopher of particularly of Ouspensky and Gurdjieff, and was doing alternative medicine, because I could track all those programs together there, and sort of develop a program of my own, which then fell into a Chinese medicine study, which has its own energetic layout and a really distinct history of looking at the world and nature as energetic phenomenon and energetic beings with its own deep meditation methods that lay out to the energetic body, that lay out to the energetic charges of trees and other phenomena, and sort of mapping that all together for my own purposes as a healer.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. I'm into this. And I wrote a couple of questions down too, because I'm just I don't want to interrupt your thought, but to come back to the Academy of Intuition, right? Intuition medicine. How old were you when you joined that? I have a thought in my head here.
About 30.
Okay. So, and this is coming from internal theories that I have when I do research. So I do research on the people, on how the phenomenon affects them, to try and understand what the phenomenon is. Is it normal? Is it us? Is it all these other things? So that's the reasoning for my question. It's just, I assume you went through a normal school system prior to that. So if you had these early age self-thought, astral travel kind of type experiences, then you joined school, then after you were done school, you found this academy. Did you find that the school system that you were in suppressed these abilities and you rediscovered them after you completed, sometime between the end of that till you got 30 and then joined the academy? Like, just
or that, or I myself, or that I continued my own consciousness exploration outside of the permissible school system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just the reason why I'm thinking that way is just because I have a little one that is so smart and very in tune with things that you mentioned, but she doesn't know all of these things yet, and we're about to put her into a school system. So I'm thinking to myself in advance, maybe there's some things that we could do on the outside.
At this point, I really wanted to
allow the system to do what it's doing, but give those guided lessons throughout life. So what would you recommend if you could talk to yourself as a child going through that school system?
Yeah, I am not a huge fan of homeschooling. I did a lot of, I studied also when my kids were young at a place called the Institute for the Achievement of Human Potential in Philadelphia, which is another, will get me going sideways. They have been studying infant neurology since about 1959 and developed and discovered quite accidentally that infants could learn to read. And the director wrote a book called Teach Your Baby to Read in 1962. And for about 60 years, they've been working with infant neurological development and have published dozens of books on teaching your infant and child to become, 49 weeks of the year, They bring in families of brain-injured children from around the world and present their 1-week program, intensive program on their campus to help parents learn to remove the obstacles, or to actually help their brain-injured and severely brain-injured children become above average in intellectual and physical capacity. 3 weeks a year, they work with parents of normal children to help their children expose the genius that all children have underlying the problematic structures that we have in educating and developing our young people. So coming through that institute and learning how voracious and capable children are of learning everything if addressed properly, makes you just jaw agape at how constrained our institutional learning programs are, and how damaging they are. And if you have the opportunity to train your child at home up to the age of 5 or so, that going to school is would be such a setback for somebody who's already reading fluently, is maybe learning a second language, is in moving into is higher level mathematics at the age of 5, because they're capable of that and joyfully. Their whole program is complete. There's no testing. There's no questioning the fact that your children are learning this, because it's obvious that they are, and it's so much fun. So I remember like sort of big emotional blows of going to school and the challenge of school and the kind of feeling that you had to shrink yourself down to not be the expansive person that you are, because you're now being, taught to be an orderly member of a society that wants you to, fit in the right box.
And
so, go ahead.
Sorry, it's kind of another personal question. You don't have to answer, but was it what kind of school system was it? Public.
Well, I went to public school, and we had a very good district, and it had a lot of money then, and there was programs and activities, and I was in the gifted program. I got to go to the opera and theater, and was learning to program computers in 7th grade. There was a lot of opportunity there where I started school. I wound up moving in 9th grade to an impoverished district, which didn't have those sort of things, and was much less, far less liberal climate. So academically, that sort of pushed me in other directions.
Would you identify as a star child, perhaps?
Yeah. I kind of figure we all are, but it really, having spent the time I said at the institute that I have, I really see that every child has that capability, and that simply removing the restrictions from the way that we educate our children and giving them the kind of opportunities that we can just lifts the lid off of all of a kid's innate capability to learn. And as we're talking about, structurally, the instruction in meditation, in centering, focusing, and being conscious of things around you, even as a game where you're allowed to have that sensory capacity, and not be denied. Parents are so into denying what their children are sensing that children just, keep turning it down. I have to turn myself down to be around these normals. That's the message you get, I think, being a kid who has a, sensitivity to nature, to the feeling that these things are alive, that your pets are communicating with you, which they are, because we are constricted to the literal world here and the literal world view. So that's.
And the terminology has obviously changed over the years. For us, it was, well, at least for me, it was called special education. And and I participated in that as well. And I guess looking through the ages, so I've just adopted a small child. So I'm still new to being a father figure. So I'm starting to think of all these things in real time, real fast, and reflecting on my own life and trying to figure out, what I know now, because I've rediscovered myself in terms of psychic abilities and whatnot as well. And I'm kind of trying to figure these things out. But, back in my day of school in the special education system, it was treated as if, there was retardation or deficits or, wasn't really gifted as we're now explaining it. And then I'm just thinking to myself that, it's a system for these gifted people. And yet you try to indoctrinate some, but there's others that you still can't, because they're too smart to know that what they're being taught is not the same or where to focus. So what are your thoughts on isolating them to learn separately? Do you view that, or can that be used in a negative way, I suppose? Because we hope that would be used as a way to nurture and grow and develop. But do you think that perhaps, because I feel that the system was used to further suppress, and I've had to do a lot of what we call shadow work, which is what you were talking about in your academy, to rediscover that some of these abilities that I have today, I've had all along, but I've been programmed to not tap into those. So the reason why I'm asking these questions, because in real time, I'm thinking how do I keep this kid smart enough and in tune to all these things without having to homeschool, and trust the system to guide her?
Yeah, I think you just have to have a practice, and it's hard as a parent, with everything coming at you and the media and the phones and the world of attractive baubles to, set up a gentle but fun and somewhat disciplined program that we're going to have our settled time, we're going to have our focused time, and to allow for that without I feel like kids are sort of being pushed to accept fantasy more than heightened perception right now. And it's a tricky, as a parent, you sort of have to guide your kid to understanding to accepting that they have perceptual abilities, and to, asking them what, it is, and to really accepting. I think that the biggest challenge is in accepting their feelings, their experience. We're so quick to deny that our children are having consciousness of whatever, and and push them to the kind of lowest bar of the standard materialist model. No, honey, you can't be. That doesn't match the materialist model of, hardened material science. And, kids aren't living in that world. And so that's, I think, the biggest thing you can do to support them is just be understanding of their perceptions and accepting them and asking, and quizzing them about that. How does that feel?
Like, it's just interesting because, like, the older generation are starting to accept the fact that they've been star children all along, but then the star children are now having star children, right? So it's interesting. Okay, so let's talk more about the Chinese medicine and Taoist science. So that's where you kind of segued into. How is that? Like, what is that, and how do you apply that? I guess we'll get into your paranormal remediation after the break, but how does that fit in?
So there's this dude. He's a Thai Chinese guy. His name's Montauk Chia, and he wrote a series of books. Here's one, Iron Shirt Qigong. So you've heard the term Qigong and the energy practice that's become very popular. It's an outgrowth of Tai Chi. There's a series not only of martial arts, but these internal meditative art forms, starting with Tai Chi. Qigong is this cultivation through this same kind of energy mapping of, the Chinese meridian system and these other energetic pathways that are known as secret channels within the Chinese body map, and the understanding that each of your organs is expressing different emotional energy. So you are doing these meditative practices to strengthen and coordinate and purify and energize the organ systems, the tendon systems, which are a sort of sixth element of Chinese medicine that are now shown to be storing a whole electrical charge of their own and conducting energy throughout the body. And you're attuning and strengthening all of these different levels to maintain your overall health, which you also address through, acupuncture if you need it, through herbal medicine when you need it. What was really kind of interesting for me in studying all of that, as you get deeper into the Taoist work, really also, another bracket of that is feng shui. And they also have a whole series of tree meditations and ways that you meditate with trees to draw the energy and purification capabilities of different trees for different healing purposes. And I spent a lot of time in the forest, hanging out with trees, and had been doing my own sort of modified version of that for years when I came upon this and began a tree meditation practice, began doing more of the Qigong exercises. And I had been through the academy program and been a TA and worked there for a few years before I went back to finishing my degree. And so and I had been started to do my housework. I was doing some small amount of working for friends and doing the houses as I moved into my Chinese medicine study, and then began looking at feng shui and this whole mapping of the world of buildings and the relationship to people as another ancient system that's very defined, well-defined, but thoroughly defined in this mathematical sense of all Taoist science, which is the eight-sided bagua and overlays of eight-sided figures on top of each other, depending on the particular birth data and sex of the person who's living in that space. So that became very interesting to me. And as I and feng shui became very popular, it was a hot thing, and I was looking at that. But at the same time, the more advanced texts of feng shui that I was buying from Hong Kong and the UK and places where there were sort of older masters discussing it, the more I was seeing small paragraphs saying, well, if you have a ghost in your property, call a priest. If you have if you have something like this, call a priest. And the feng shui became such a popular hang a mirror here, put a bagua there, put some candles here, move the flowers there, put a rock there. Super pop. And in the Bay Area where I live, it was just this crazy pop gold rush to do this little bit of stuff. And having been studying Taoist science, and my teacher's she's a serious hitter, and she's both a Taoist teacher from the Montauk tradition, but she actually co-founded the California State Acupuncture Licensing Board in the late 70s and pushed California to be one of the first states to actually approve Chinese medicine and Chinese doctors. So she's very deep in all of this. And I was in a private tutorship with her in a tutorial group, and we were required to learn a lot of the Taoist science, which is a calendrical system with its own sort of astrological methodology called bagua. And bagua is less an astrological system than a planetary alignment system that is charting the seasons and the periodicity of all of the natural unfolding of the seasons through its own calendar based on the rotational axis of the Earth to the sun. So astrology is a tertiary science, but bagua is just like, where is the planet in rotational alignment to the sun, and what happens every day in every hour? How's that aligned with the human body and the organ system, and what occurs every day and how your body reacts? And how does that mathematically align to your sense of place or what have you? So in real traditional Taoist science, you can't do feng shui without knowing bagua. And if you don't understand the animal stems, the bagua chart of a person, which is their kind of self-identifying animals and energies, like I'm a water tiger, then you can make some mistakes in terms of your feng shui capacity of how you're aligning things, because in deep feng shui, it's like this room is like this and this room is like that, and this person should really be over here. And it's not pop science, it's deep science. So the more I got into it, the more I got out of it, because I realized that nobody really wanted to be told that their feng shui trip was really complex and needed a really complex adjustment. And what I was already doing as a psychic house cleaner was at this bar so far above what anybody was doing with feng shui that the advanced texts were telling me that I was some kind of priest.
Okay. So we're going to pause right here, but we'll continue after a message from our professional partners. If you're listening to the audio only replay, head over to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association to see the video that goes with this audio. This includes the after chat, where I will share some test updates and talk about current investigations that I'm working on. And today I'm going to update you on my Canadian current event survey for 2021, 22, and 23. I actually did 2 cases yesterday. I'm actually surprised I had time to do that. And I'm 2 for 0, meaning I've identified 2 of these declassified documents as normal events. So I'm 2 for 0 right now. And so we'll talk about that in the after chat. So remember, you are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencers Support Association, and we will be right back. Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
Welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Have you ever experienced an unexplained event involving paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrial, dogman, or any other paracryptid? Head over to theexperiencersupport.org and click the purple button on the top right corner that says Submit a Report. The more reports we get, the more we will understand this phenomenon and how it affects our people. That the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for those reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. All right, so I am still here with Sheldon. How are you doing? Second half?
Good. Hey.
Good to go. It was funny. We all left at the same time, took that bio break. We all kind of scurried away. I saw that. It was funny.
It's life.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're into the paranormal remediation. Before we expand on that, I kind of wanted to put a thought in when you were explaining the Tai Chi and the Taoism and the Feng Shui and the Bagua. All right.
Or it's Batza, because actually the calendrical system is the Batza. The Bagua is the 8-sided figure.
I've never connected it in this way before in terms of the Feng Shui to help remove, perhaps paranormal entities. Because, but I understand the concept. It kind of clicks something because in my research, I started to think that maybe it starts with a thought. We see things, and like poltergeist phenomenon is something that I'm always fascinated with. The immediate thought, because of Hollywood movies, is that when the cupboard doors open and all these things move, that it's demonic, it's a demon, it's something from the other side. But when you really study and you research some of these cases and what has happened prior to the event, you discover more times than none, that there's some trauma-based activities that may have transpired or led up to these moments. And these people have these abilities that they just don't realize because they were never taught to endure into it. And then you start to understand the concept that maybe it's not a demon, it's me. I was so mad because like in that moment, my thought was I've had enough. And this expelling of energy came out, cupboard doors go open, and then you're scared because it's weird, especially when you don't realize you have, quote unquote, these superpowers, which have always instilled. So when you mentioned the Feng Shui going in and putting a mirror here, flowers there, change all that other stuff, we are changing the mindset. And if you have a messy room, you have a messy mind, right? So clear the room, clear the mind. So now I just kind of wanted to say that when you get into your what you do now, this house clean, healing houses. I want to know if you've solved or if the paranormal activity had disappeared since you've done what you've done in terms of.
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Always. But I will tell you that you are exactly on target in terms of poltergeist activity, in terms of my personal experience. And so, coming back to this Feng Shui framework, Feng Shui was developed as a way to make the kingdom and the palace most secure and beneficial to the king. So the whole alignment is for the king's energy and the king's court and the king's protection and the king's army and the nations, centering in the palace. And you're applying those sort of levels to it. And within the context of where you are in nature. Are you in a mountain enclave? Are you in a forest enclave? Are you, and how do you align to nature and the actual physical phenomenology of nature and nature energy? And, you look at feng shui, and it is principally, these critical decisions are made about the direction that your front door faces, the direction with which you leave the building and enter the energy of the world, which changes every year. And in feng shui, you may have to move the entrance to your house. Nobody in America wants you to tell them, yeah, you got to start, moving to the back door of your house now. But that's the energy which surrounds you. Whereas the energy of the actual people and as you said, these flare-ups. So in the few poltergeist activity cases that I've worked on, there were distinct, and I frame almost all of my work as related to human bioenergy. But there were distinctly actors still living in the home who had intense emotional charges that they were completely unaware of, and that were clearly flaring up and causing these discharges. And, in my training at the academy, one of my best friends, who's a, practicing intuitive healer, pops light bulbs like nobody's business. Something's going on for her, and you walk into the room and boom, light goes out, because she's charged on that wavelength that when her hackles are up or whatever's up, she just puts out a light. And we've all, all of her friends are like, Randy's here, and we know that. But that's pretty mild compared to what happens with people who are in dramatically charged situations, incapable of usually facing what is so intensely acting on them, or unconscious of it, in which case you have these telekinetic flare-ups. And I've had, clients like, oh, stuff's, the things are flying off the walls. The medicine cabinet is, dumping its contents. The dishes are coming off the shelf. And you talk to them for long enough and you find out they're in the midst of trauma, and is, repeatedly subjected trauma that they can't address within their family structure or however it's going. Only one case of poltergeist activity, would I say, was being operated by somebody who was no longer alive, and that was a suicide. And in suicide situations, you get that, depending on the case, of course, you can kind of get that hard charge of despair and intently focused on communicating to the people who are living there. But in pretty much all cases of my work, and I'm also, an investigator in this sense, and really not an easy believer. I was sort of forced to start training at the academy, and played prove it every step of the way to reinforce what I was experiencing. And when I started working on houses, I was amazed at what was happening, and just was kind of stumbling over myself to believe that I was both perceiving things that I was later were totally verified, and that I was altering the sort of substrate of the energetic space with my practice. But it just kept being reinforced. It kept being reinforced. And I kept going into more bizarre situations and resolving them. And just like the, cloud lifts, the energy dissipates, and the feel of the house is completely different, or the house sells the next day. And I've done that so many times in such radically different situations. I say in my book, if my clients call with these bizarre situations, and I say, well, I'm not really sure I can help you. But, I know what I can do, but I don't know what I can't do. And I'm always willing to take a flyer and see. And generally, the weirdest situations, be they attacks by birds or animals or complete breakdown physically some time, in situations that the client doesn't understand, related to the remnants of the people who've lived or died there. They all seem to be resolvable through my meditation and energetic practice, which is, years of cultivation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I got your website up here. Let's explore the website together, and you can tell me, everybody else who's listening, where to find. I do see your book at the bottom here, so when we get to your book, we can look at that as well. And so let's explore your site here. And what would you like to talk about?
Well, I have a whole, there's, interviews and discussion of how my work works. And certainly, and there's, I think, a link to a page where you can listen to a few chapters of my book, my audio version. I released this book about 10 years ago, and it didn't quite hit the market very well. I think at the time, I kind of wondered whether I should be focusing on cities. I love my work. I'm deeply committed to it, and my clients are always very happy to have found me. It's just a bit, it's weird. It's a weird job, and it doesn't, it's not something that there's a natural progression of that. Oh, everybody's calling to get their house psychically healed, because it's such a sort of odd case of things to do. And people don't want to accept that, they have a problem. Most of my clients find me as sort of a last resort, because they feel like they're going insane and they can't trust their own perceptions. And they just sort of, after a bunch of searching, sort of stumble across me. And that's how I've, other people do recommend me and refer me. But it's not a standard process. Although in, one of the end section of my book is all about how I've discovered that these sort of processes occur in all these other cultures. In China, you have feng shui, and in India, you have pujas, which are these cleansing rituals for all kinds of activities, including moving into a new house or after the death of someone in a house, when you're getting married. There's the whole pagan ceremonies for cleansing and post-death. There's the Catholic exorcism. There's all these sort of factors that exist of acceptance that we live in a charged reality, and that the emotional and psychic energy that people put into their living spaces leaves imprints, and that these need to be dealt with by a professional. So, at the moment, I find the kind of biggest tracer for me is dealing with the real estate market. Oh, that's the other dude.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's about this book?
Oh,
is that you?
That's my previous book, which was about my life before I started meditating all the time.
I like the imagery.
Thank you. It's a fabulous. As I said, there's not a lot of schooling in developing self-mastery and meditation skills in American culture. So you find yourself working through the back door a lot of times to figure out what there is going on with differences in consciousness.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to go back. I noticed and it touches on what we were talking about, and I saw it when I was looking through here. but your messages are on point that I resonate with. So it's not all about ghosts. So that heading, is intriguing, and emotion set the energy, and that is completely something that I believe as well. And then your little tag here on the website: death, divorce, and traumatic events can disturb your home and you. So again, so my message to the community here is that we are I probably would say 90% responsible for the activity that is happening in our home based on how we're feeling and based on what we're thinking.
Yeah, this is the big deal, is that we're putting out these charges. So, when I started doing this work, it was in the kind of crisis years of the AIDS epidemic in San Francisco. And I had a lot of houses that, primarily I was dealing with cancer and AIDS deaths, some murders, and these homes, which were sort of beautiful homes, you'd go into and you just automatically feel like you were sick. And the people living there would feel like they're sick. Click on that graph there, or click on that chart there.
Yeah, I have that set up.
Yeah.
So
great.
Yeah.
And the inhabitants of these houses would have these terrible dreams, right? So they'd move in. I remember I had a client bought this condo from a guy, from the family. The guy had died of AIDS, and he couldn't use the master bedroom in a very expensive and nice condo. He lived in the other room because he was just having these horrible dreams that made him sick if he was sleeping in that room. And I went into that room and it felt like my whole world had caved in on me. And as I, in my practice is I'm meditating and allowing myself to experience consciously the feelings that are in the physical space that I'm working in. And that feeling was such a terrifying death of decay of the body, with all of my loved ones hating me. It's like these men who died in this abject terror of this, terrible condition, while their families threw them away, while their lovers ran away from them, while everyone left them to die painfully alone. And the anger and sadness and pain that they lived in would just fill these rooms until the room itself was sick and would make anybody who came into it feel sick. And this has been, it's a kind of classic joke in my business, is that I go to these houses, I meet people. I was doing another house in San Francisco, and we had dinner with my client and her neighbor. She invited her neighbor over, and we went over to her neighbor's house. And her neighbor was telling us that we were crazy and I was a madman. And she had just bought the nice house next door, or had it for 6 months, 8 months, $1 million house, in 98, when $1 million was something. And she was a lawyer, had a master bedroom that she had given up and filled with boxes, still had her unopened packing boxes from having moved into the house in the master bedroom. And I was like, well, why are you not using this bedroom? And she said, well, I just don't like the way this room feels. It made me feel weird. I said to her, okay, you've just turned $250,000 worth of square footage of your $1 million home into a storage room because you don't like the way it feels. And you're telling me that I'm crazy. And I see that all the time, in my work. That's de rigueur. So what you're seeing, Ryan, in that, people are energetically emanating. that is sticking in the environment. Mm-hmm. And then people are feeling that, people are sensing that when they enter that environment. That is exactly what I'm describing throughout my book at, a variety of levels. And that the aftermath of that, it's like that fall of the House of Usher. Well, how bad can it get in this house? How bad was it? And how bad do the people sitting on top of it sink into it afterward? How much do people repeat? The really weird thing is, how much do people repeat the exact same behaviors? How many times does the exact same divorce situation happen in this house? Because that is the pattern that has now been established for living in this house. So you move in thinking you're going to do this, A, B, and C, but your house feels like D. So you start acting like D, even though it doesn't feel right to you, even though it doesn't feel normal, even though it doesn't feel like the way you are. You align yourself to the way the house feels because you haven't restored it or recharged it.
Yeah. So I printed off this chart.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm actually gonna probably use this in some way in terms of explaining some things, because I've noticed, I haven't seen this before, but I'm totally understanding, this whole paranormal investigating kind of culture, and why evidence is really hard to obtain. Okay. So yes, previous owners is something they take in consideration, and they make these assumptions that if there are these traumas and all these other stuff, that could be the energy, which is true, right? Which is possible, I should say. And the history of the land, the state of the house, all these things. But the woo is that attachment to the fact that it was something external or out of the interdimensional, perhaps. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to communicate. I don't have a school, but I've had this idea of creating a paranormal investigating kind of type school that had that taught actual investigating techniques. So that way you would just investigate better, or perhaps not investigate the same things the same way. So the problem that I have with these paranormal investigators, and no offense, you guys have the enthusiasm, you guys go in, you plan, you strategize, you do all these things and you put a lot of effort into doing it, but you're shooting yourself in the foot, because when you put an EMF detector in that room, and all of you guys are energetic beings that are trying to read from the dead, you guys are setting it off.
You're out vibing the vibe.
And you assume that it's coming from a paranormal thing. So if you truly, pro tip, free pro tip, if you truly want to see if a place is haunted, you set your equipment up, and you and everybody get the F out of the house, and you just observe in a remote location. And if that device goes off, then check the Wi-Fi. But if all that is out, then we can suggest at that point that it may be extraterrestrial, paranormal, some sort of intelligence, because the only intelligence in the room is us, and we are contaminating it. Unless maybe I should keep this quiet, but I'll patent this, copyright it. Let's make some Faraday clothing or bags for ourselves that we can sit in while we're in the room, to rule out the fact that our energy is projection. Because once you tell everybody in the room, make a noise, everyone's thinking, make a noise. And that group thought magnifies it, right?
Well, but at the same time, Ryan, the focusing at a distance has its own charge. Mm-hmm. I do this work remotely in some cases, and it has had a distinct effect at
But see, with
thousands of miles.
When you do your remote viewing, have you done research yet? Like, are you doing it blind? Do you know your target?
Oh, I'm cleaning houses. So I have a full layout.
Remote viewing is kind of similar because if the target is in that house and you are able to communicate remotely to them, they're going to have the thoughts and the energy inside the house. So we kind of need, like, are they removed from the house?
Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not there. It's this, I'm doing strictly, unless I'm doing an energy healing on somebody remotely. If I'm working on a house remotely, which is what people are primarily hiring me for, then I'm just doing my house clearing process from a distance. But I've done it from a pretty great distance and had some pretty freaky stuff happen. So, my question, back to you is like, I'm not sure if that wouldn't set off the EMF meter, even if all of your investigators were at a distance, if they're consciously focused on that spot. What is that wavelength with which we are focusing our energy?
Need to be exactly right.
Yeah, I've done Faraday cage experiments and moved energy. I did a study at the Institute of Noetic Sciences under Dean Radin, where, I don't know if you've ever heard of the double slit experiment, where viewers are asked to focus. They have a photon gun that's shooting through a slit, through a pair of slits, and it's being tracked with a monitor on the other side. And in these bursts of 30 seconds, you're asked to try to stop the movement of the electron through the gate, or of the photon through the gate. And I did so well at that they invited me back to the second level with another Taoist master and a Qigong dude. And the really strange thing was I decided to try two different methods of blocking or of changing the movement of the photon. And they were kind of freaked out by my results because I had both a blocking action and a coherent action, which they didn't see with anybody else. So when I was trying my second technique, it would make the photons focus dead center on the bullseye and much more accurately than average hit the target. So it seems like, according to current physics, that the emanation of focused thought is having an effect on physical matter or wavical matter. So I couldn't, at what wavelengths that can be focused or perceived by equipment, I don't know. I've really never focused on the whole paranormal investigation side because I am focused on resolving the issues more than trying to determine if they're there. By the time my clients call me, know something is there.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to get at just to keep the theme for those who've been following the program for the last 5 years and everything else that I'm doing, I cannot study the phenomenon if I can't capture it. I cannot do any UFO work if you don't have any photos or any videos. So I'm not going to sit around and wait for this evidence to come forward because it's not happening. And the only thing that we can study is the people and ourselves. And when we study the people and ourselves and we accept all these assumptions, like kind of explains it away. Now, is there an afterlife? Is there unseen entities from interdimensional beings, time travel, all these other things? Like, all those things could still exist. All those things could coexist. It's just this particular part that's investigative driven in terms of how do we get proof that these other things are happening are a little tricky. Because we associate,
at least.
the idea of ghosts with demons, with Halloween, with all these other things, but really these are all, human orchestrated pagan type things and all these other stuff that we were, doing for certain reasons with rituals and doing all this other stuff that we just talked about. It's that belief that there's an afterlife because that we're holding on to. I'm not trying to go all atheist here, but that is where we get caught in terms of, I want it to be a ghost because we've had lost loved ones that have passed, and we want evidence that when we pass too, that we're going to go somewhere. And the place that we're going may not actually be the place we're actually going to. A lot of people think up, maybe let's think out, right? Outer space could be like outer on this plane, not out.
Well, if you're a reincarnationalist and you read the Greeks, you're I'm getting a phone interrupting me. How weird. If you're reading the Greeks, they believe that you're dissolved and re-enter with your consciousness and spirit wiped clean, and then enter this sphere again as some other being, perhaps with some memory. There's this Japanese film called Afterlife, where when people die, they go to it's like the campus of an abandoned high school, and they get 1 week in which they review their life they say there's counselors there that they talk to, and they get a week to determine what memory from their life they would like to keep with them. And then they reenact that memory and film it so that they have this one memory that they get to keep going into their next life. And in the end, it turns out that all of the counselors were people who either committed suicide or couldn't remember or couldn't determine what their memory that they wanted to keep was. And so they get stuck there in this middle position and become sort of counselors listening to all these other people run through their lives and determine what they'd want to do with their lives. Very interesting movie and a very interesting kind of concept of death. And my feeling is that the idea that in just my experience of working in hundreds of homes is that the charges left by people as they're dying are the primary, or as they're living and then dying is the primary aspect of what I'm working with and whatever that attracts. And secondarily, there do seem to be people who are so intent on communicating something that somehow their remnant energy is pushing in to this nighttime, dimension when the veil is weakest, and communicating to the people who live there, trying to push some presence, some awareness, some call for reconnection into this sphere. Mm-hmm. But the idea that they're animated beings of broad purpose that enter back into the space of the living and act as independent entities is not something I've really experienced in a lot of this work. It's very driven to specifically resolve issues or reenact or hold on to the pattern of living here as if the people had not been prepared to die, or were conscious of their death, or were still so attached to their life here or their fear of transcending that they are kind of on this merry-go-round of having some presence here that hasn't recycled.
Okay, we're down to the last 3 minutes, so this would be final thoughts. What do you want to leave with our viewers? Where do you want them to go? How can they find you? Where are you going to be next?
I have a few other podcasts coming up. They can always find me at healinghouses.com. You can click through to the audiobook and listen to several chapters of my audiobook on there. If you can pop back to that graphic for a sec, you can just talk really quickly about the way that I frame up what a house looks like, and you can see that there's kind of these different energy piles of the emotional energy and the physical environment and the history of the building. And in a lot of cases, there's this kind of whole financial level when you're dealing with, selling a house of, who built it and what was their aspect and how is your relationship with your realtor. And you're sort of outside of all this. And I have a different chart for inherited houses, which have all of this background of your own family investments and relationships with your family.
Where do you
These
find
are
that?
the primary.
I have an inherited.
The chart. It's on the page. There's another page that just, if you go up to the menus, there's another page that shows both these charts.
Okay, I'll find it. Keep going.
Yeah. So these are the different charges that I find in every house and the aspects that you are kind of working around the ingrained energy of a house when you moved into it. And you may be entirely unaware of this, but a lot of times anytime you move into a new space, you're moving into whatever emotional patterns and feelings and events have transpired there in the years prior to you being there. So any house can always use a ritual cleansing of your own design or any design. And many houses need something more. And certainly houses that feel harsh, that make you feel depressed, that make you have bad dreams or give you repetitive bad dreams in your bedroom. These are places that you should be aware that you need to be aware that you have to separate yourself from the house and understand that the house is affecting you because you're a perceptive, aware entity, and that these situations can be healed and that help is available.
All right. I was not able to find it in time. Where would it be?
Scroll up. If you can just scroll up to under Insights in the menu.
Oh,
next one.
Oh, well,
next one over Insights. Try Insights.
Inherited home. This is it right here. This is it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to save that one too.
So there you can see that your home is sitting on your parents. There's all this emotional charge from your parents and however your relationship with your parents went on. There's you and your siblings and whatever relationship went on with your siblings who are also connected to your parents, who are also connected to the home. And then there's the law and the kind of breakdown of your inheritance situation. I particularly focused on this as a chapter in my book about a house I worked on that was inherited by twin brothers after their mother was killed in a carjacking incident. And the feeling of their mother and their mother's like I wound up replaying the mother's death while I sat in her bedroom, and as I experienced her being murdered again and again and again while I cleared that energy, was very impactful in my development of my practice. And then understanding that the twins had this locked energy in the house that they had grown up in, and this was a sort of energetic battleground for them in, determining the inheritance and the charge around it. It's a very complex job, and I see that, and any house that you move into, that you buy, that you move into, that you're not inheriting, may have that same kind of dynamic going on from people who lived there before. And it's something that people should be aware of, and that I'm trying to, really help home buyers and home sellers understand that my practice really helps clean places so that they sell faster and easier and are more livable for new tenants.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Everybody's time to go, unless you're interested in hearing some of the latest updates from the Experiential Sport Association. And if you want to pick my brain a bit, there's some questions in the comments I haven't answered yet, so I'll talk to you guys about that. Sheldon, we will email you once we've redistributed everything to let you know where everything's at. And if you need anything, you have our email, reach out, and good luck with everything. And thank you so much for what you're doing and all the people you've helped and all the people you continue to help.
Super. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And if you're listening to the audio only replay, your show ends here. So you'll have to head over to youtube.com/Experiential Sport Association to see the video that goes with that audio. Oh, sorry. No, you don't get that audio. Never mind. You get nothing. So you got to head over to YouTube to get the after chat if you want to see that right now. All right. And as always, keep your eyes in the sky and heat the world. Peace.
That's it, everybody. That is a wrap. That is the end of it all. Thank you for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you back next week, where we'll continue to have this conversation deep down into the rabbit hole in which we call the Ultra Spectrum. Thanks for joining us. I said that already. Oh well, fuck it. Heat the world.
Hello. Welcome to the After Chat. How is everybody doing this morning? That was a great show. Chris, what did you think? Bring you in real quick. What did you think?
I think it was good. A lot of knowledge. Yeah.
I had a little extra coffee this morning, so I was awake. You know,
that was a good thing.
Since it was a thing here, so let's say hello to our peeps. So Scarborough Sasquatch Station, good to see you. If you're still here, say hello. Werder Bremen from Germany, greetings from Canada. And we have Lisa. Good morning, Lisa. And I think that's all we have. Oh, Neon Angel, welcome to the show. If you're still here, say hello. All right. So what do we have here? So Scarborough had said, strange out-of-body experience, saving yourself with your subconscious coming alive to awaken your sleeping physical form. Yeah, I thought that was pretty telling. It's like the future self who lived the version of the house burning down or things going on, like, horrible things. Perhaps I had come back and woken him up to make a difference. Perhaps, something happened. Maybe he died in the past life, or future life. There's different realities and alternative things, and that could totally make sense of that. But it could also just be a dream. But I mean, there's a good coincidence there, right? Himself waking himself up, remembering that, and then there being absolute chaos, in the house. So I found that very interesting as well. Lisa says, Ryan, what you say is true. I believe it but I still believe in spirits as well as experience both of these. Yeah, we were kind of talking about that a little bit. Let me just finish your thought. I learned the hard way that I was attacked by an unseen entity too many times. I wasn't prepped for that. It was terrifying, not only for me, but my family. Investigators are, okay, that's another thought. And then you had said, Ryan, explain an unseen entity taking hold of you. So when I say ghosts, I mean the transparent, lucid kind of images or orbs or these energy visions, I suppose, that I don't think actually exist. And what I mean by that is I believe there's evidence to suggest that there's some sort of human manipulation or human event that causes us to see that, or technology. So when you take pictures and you see things that weren't there with the human eye. So there's a lot of human things that do that. These physical entities that you are unable to see, maybe using technology, holographic technology. We see that, so there's a difference in that. That doesn't mean that's not happening. It's just, it's different. And when I understand that there's no ghost, that doesn't mean there's no extraterrestrial beings that are somehow infiltrating our minds or infiltrating our space. That is completely separate. Just like when I say that the UFOs are just government politics bullshit, that doesn't mean there aren't extraterrestrials flying super duper advanced technology that we can't see, but they're so smart enough that they're not going to reveal those only until the experiencers that need to see them, such as experiencers like yourself. So so it does exist, but what we're told exists. There's a lot of mud in the waters. And in a podcast, when I'm interviewing someone and I'm kind of speaking freely, it's really hard for me to explain all that without taking away from the ghost, taking away from the guest. In order, don't shake your head at me, Chris. You shake your head at me, I'll bring you back in. I know you don't like being on screen. I can bring you in. I can hit that button anytime. So anyways, that's just kind of my thoughts. I could be wrong. I won't be offended. So then Lisa says, investigators are known to check for high EMFs. If it is high, it can cause illness, hallucinations, and even nightmares. And that's true. And we get that from our 5G towers. We get that from our Wi-Fi. We get that from this computer right now. We get that from all of these devices in small doses, but over time, longevity, there's a lot of things. So when an EMF detector goes off, yeah, maybe there's a spike in normal energy, or there's some energy weapons that are being used, right? And things like that. I don't know what happened there. Chris, did you boot me out? Did you just do that out of spite to be like, I can bring you in? You're like, yeah, I can bring you out. No, you didn't do that? Weird. And maybe the energy is causing a riffle in the Wi-Fi. Who knows? That was strange. Okay, so let me see here. Neon Angel, you said I never get notifications. And I did see that, and I asked if you guys click the bell when subscribed, and Lisa said that sometimes the notifications don't work. I really don't know how that algorithm works. There is that phenomenon of shadow banned. I don't know if the algorithm is automatic. That makes it hard to get notifications because of the content that we're talking. But I don't think we're talking about anything deep enough that someone would be deliberately withholding information. But who knows how that works? So you found us now. This podcast will be Thursdays. I'm on my Facebook page too, so I'm going to actually share that with you. Chris, just be mindful of the time. We'll get out of here for 11:30 at the latest. You can start the music then. And then we'll have another bio break before our next meeting. Okay, entire screen. Here we go. So on my Facebook page, which I can put in the comments for those who don't know where to find me, it's right there, and I usually post about the podcast. The Tessa Facebook page as well, which is facebook.com/the experiencer. Oh, no. I think it's experiencer support. Aha. So we also have a Facebook page too, which is where we'll post these updates. So if you follow these pages, then they don't shadow ban us because we manually put these notifications in because we know people don't get that. So what have I done since we last talked? Well, I cleaned up some of the cobwebs in my investigations too, because Chris is manning the show quite well and behind the scenes, and he's got things operating to the point that I'm able to work on some of the things I haven't worked on in a while, and I'm getting prepped to get back into cases again, and with his help. So but in order to do that, I got to tie up some loose ends. So on my visual evidence database, I've added, I'm going to start tracking star forts, obelisks, and pyramids. So what do those three things have in common? Well, you get into the free energy Tartarian flat earth movement. There are, that's Chris, you rolled your eyes. You're in. You rolled your eyes. Say what you say. Don't roll your eyes. Tell me what you want. Tell me what your problem is.
Well, I still think the Earth is a globe.
It can be. It can also be larger than what we're told.
Yes, it can be.
And the plane that we're on, is larger. And the planets or the planets, which are smaller versions of the big plane, could also exist within the same globe. Right?
Correct.
We're gonna get it. We'll get another flat earther on here, and then we'll debate all that. But with the pyramids, obelisks, star. Okay, so anyway, roll your eyes again. Don't roll your eyes. Be a man. Come in. Share your opinions. All right. So on the database, if you guys haven't seen that, I'll put that link in the description for you as well. Lisa says hi, Chris. You didn't say hi. You're rude. I did start with one pyramid that I have here in Antarctica. I'm still trying to find a actual screenshot so I can add that image here. But there are a set of 3 pyramids in Antarctica, and I found the GPS coordinates of that, so I put that there. And I'm going to eventually put in star forts and all that other stuff to try and triangulate, and look for patterns. For those of you who are new to this map, let me just get out of here. I just pooched it. You can actually check off things that you are looking for. So eventually I'm going to have a lot of things to track. You can just uncheck all the noise and look for something specific. Sorry about that. Oh. I zoomed in too close. I screwed it up. Hold on there. Refresh. There we go. So by unchecking these boxes, it will show you specifically what you're looking for. Declassified events, residual energy, places where visitations took place, government buildings, all that stuff. You can remove that and just simply look for aerial activity if you would like, anything like that. Okay. And these little heat maps, if you will, they have these images, they have some explanations of all these other things. So you have fun with that. So basically what this post is just adding 3 more categories of things that I'm tracking based on my research. I'm not going to spend any time listing every single phenomenon that has already been discovered. I'm only listing the phenomenons as I discover them in my research, because I'm very focused on removing the fluff. So you won't see things like Roswell or the Tic Tac videos on here yet, because it's still inconclusive in terms of the extraterrestrial origin. Another thing too is I've added a couple more resources to our investigator page. So if you are if you are a researcher or independent investigator, you can also use these resources here. So this helps me when I'm doing my research, when I'm doing my investigations. If I need to do something, here's all the tools, and they're all free. Most of them anyways. I think pretty sure they're all free. So these are things I use for certain reasons and at certain times. So I've updated that. I did a podcast back in July. We talked about flat Earth, which was fun. I never saw that picture. That's funny. I did post this thing as well. So this is a man-made drone / carrier craft of some sort, which is very interesting, human-made, man-made. But if this was seen in the sky late at night, people would think that it's a UFO. So a part of that is being aware of being introduced to new technologies that exist and whatnot. And of course, we had some reels out from our last podcast, and we're up to date, and that's where we are. All right. Now, the Canadian Current Event Survey. Those of you who remember, go to resources. No. Evidence. Yeah. Annual data sets. This page here has a list of my reports that I put out. So my last report was in 2020. It's now 2023. Yeah, I'm 3 years behind, but I am trying to complete the 2021 version, and I'll probably do the 2022 and shortly after that, and then the 2023 one will come out in 2024. So for those of you who haven't seen this, if you click on here to purchase the full report, you can get the paperback version, the Kindle edition as well. Take a look inside. This essentially is me compiling all the data from the declassified documents. That didn't really give much of a tease. Let me see if I can show you more. Yeah, so more statistical a breakdown of what's been reported by human beings to other human beings in technical normalized agencies to help show that majority of what's being seen that's considered as unknown is known. And by doing that, I'm also highlighting some things that are unknown that me, myself, and other colleagues that are in the know haven't witnessed before. And that doesn't really mean this technology doesn't exist. It just means it kind of helps us pinpoint the hot spots in terms of if anybody is interested in the 2020 version, I'll put that in the comments. We haven't solved it yet, but at least we know what to ask for and when to ask and who to ask for it. Lisa, you said, what did you say, Lisa? 1 second here. The world is round. Globe, I've seen it. Yes, you've seen it. I know. In astral travel. and in a experience. I have not had any of those things. So until that happens to me, I'm still convinced with the measurements that I've made on the ground. So let me see here. I've seen a sphere size of the moon glowing a bright orange, moving slowly until it disappeared into the clouds. What was it? Sphere size of the moon glowing a bright orange. So see, now you have to get into sight. So are you seeing it in this 3 dimension, or are you seeing it in your mind's eye? Are you seeing it in this other place? Do you have the gift and the ability to see things in real time in this ether, in this outer space that is there? That could be the reason why you're seeing some things like this that we can't capture, because it's in a different place, it's a different time, or it's in a different dimension. So we're now that and if that's the case, then that could be anything. Right? Give me a picture to show that it's in this 3-dimensional world plane that we're in, then I can help normalize that. Right? But right now, the lid has been kind of broken wide open on this. Oh, thank you, Lisa. Have your book. Love it. Perfect. Thank you. So give you guys a little teaser on some of the images that I had already put in this book on the 2 cases that I closed yesterday. There was a helicopter that was the culprit of one of these UFO sightings, this helicopter here. How was I able to figure that out? Because the measurements of the helicopter here fit the measurements of the description as well. Plus, when I recreated the event, it is, not too far away from an institution that actually had visitors by helicopters that day. So there's a lot of information that will be explained in that report. But this was reported to the Canadian government. The Canadian government did investigate, and I was able to continue from where they left off. Another case that I've been working on was interesting because it was 1,000 feet away from the United States border, around and about 41 kilometers away from the shoreline in Lake Ontario, near Burlington. What was interesting about that is this photo right here. Chris, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this video? I'll try and make it bigger here. Hold on. What do you guys think that is?
Wow.
Yeah. So this is an actual picture. It's authentic. It's real. It's been fact checked. It's been verified. Right? And for you globies out there that make fun of the flat earth and the curvature, if the earth was curved, you wouldn't see it hovering in the fucking sky, by the way. Just wanted to point that out. Could still be a globe, Chris. Don't have a panic. I'm just saying that the plane that we live in is bigger, is wider. There's more land. There's more continents. There's more resources. There's more people. And that's where all these things are kind of taking place because we can't get there. Think bigger. Our planet isn't small. We're not a planet. We're not a small planet. We are the center of the universe. So anyways, do you have an explanation for that? Where'd you go? How dare you? How dare you remove yourself? It's okay. All right. So you don't have an explanation for that?
Nope, not at all.
Here's the explanation. It's a phenomenon called a super mirage. When the weather temperature changes. You got cold air and progressively warmer air. And in discovering that phenomenon, now I had to figure out, how to do that. I checked the temperature on that day, and there was, the right conditions to create this phenomenon. And that is why this witness is seeing what appeared to be a UFO that resembled a barge of some sort, or a freight freight vessel. I'm not in the Navy. I have no idea what kind of boat that is. But it looks like a barge or a freight vessel to me. Anyways, so that's was debunked in terms of that, which are 2 government declassified documents that were labeling them as UFOs, an unidentified flying object, but it is a flying object, but now it's been identified. So the purpose of that is to once I am at a point where I have no longer any information to identify, then I'll reach out to my colleagues and see if they can identify them. And then if nobody can figure it out, then I publish the report. And if you guys are interested, you can buy it and read about it and see my work. I show my work. Okay. So it's not like I just do all the data. I actually explain to you in detail how I came to my conclusions. Because if you don't show your work, you know, you're just just an asshole with lips, you know. You gotta, so this is me kind of putting my money where my mouth is. But you as the experiencer may not care about how I come to the conclusion. So I put the information on the website for the most basic ones to show that these are ones that I'm unsure about, but I'll remove some if more information comes forward. And for those who want to do a fact check, then you can purchase the book and fact check yourself, or perhaps teach me a thing or two, because I am not a pilot. I am not an astronaut. I'm just an investigator who's very good at putting puzzles and pieces together, but I can't dig and I can't look and I can't do all the math that exists to figure out what these might be until I'm exposed to all of these things. I haven't seen every military black budget helicopter or plane and all these other things, but other people may have, right? So there's a lot, just to come back to my message, what I was saying earlier is that there's a lot of people that know more than I do. And this is still a learning curve. 5, 6, I guess I'm in year 8 of this. So I've seen some things, but there's still some things that are confusing to me that I hope can be explained. And I really do hope, something exists. Chris, it'd be a good time to cue the music here. Something exists. I'm just not quite sure what that is. We are being lied. We are being lied. But the biggest suppression, I believe, is us not giving ourselves enough credit and enough power. And I think we're super beings, and it's time that we nurture that energy. And that's it. So yeah. Thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky, everybody. Lead the world. See you next time.
If you want to really find out about Ryan, ask him about all his work and UFOs in Ontario.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada.
I have used his research extensively. He's much more than a one-dimensional character. He's an authority on UFOs and investigating them, Meg.
Wow!
Really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when